You think it is humility, but it is humiliation. Without realizing it, you have been placing yourself on your knees before others. You apologize even for existing. You swallow your own pain behind an empty smile. You agree with what you do not want, just to avoid conflict. You accept scraps of love thinking it is the best you can have. No one sees. But inside, you are crumbling. Enough. Today you will see the 7 silent signs of emotional submission. Each sign is an invisible chain binding your dignity. Because here there is no convenient lie. There is brutal honesty. Stay until the end of this video, and you will never humiliate yourself again. And if this message makes sense to you, if you want more people to find this clarity, leave a like now. Each like spreads truth in a world of illusion. And if you are not yet subscribed, subscribe. Because here we do not sell comfort. We build dignity. Let us begin with what no one explained to you. What is emotional submission? And why do you confuse humility with humiliation? Emotional submission is not kindness. It is not goodness. It is not being a good person. It is you erasing yourself. It is you making yourself small. It is you disappearing so that others may shine. It is you swallowing your pain, your needs, your opinions, your identity, just to avoid causing trouble, just to avoid conflict, just to be accepted. And you do this thinking it is humility, thinking it is virtue, thinking it is love. But it is not. It is humiliation disguised as kindness. It is self-destruction disguised as sacrifice. It is you placing yourself on your knees and calling it respect. True humility is recognizing your worth without arrogance. It is having dignity without needing to prove anything. It is respecting others without disrespecting yourself. But humiliation is different. Humiliation is you diminishing yourself. It is you accepting treatment that wounds your soul. It is you making yourself invisible. And the difference is brutal. Humility strengthens you. Humiliation destroys you. Humility gives you peace. Humiliation gives you shame. Humility liberates you. Humiliation imprisons you. And you have been confusing the two. Every day, in silence, without realizing it. Now let us turn to neuroscience. Why do you act this way? Why do you erase yourself? Why do you accept the unacceptable? Your brain has a structure called the amygdala. The amygdala is the emotional alarm center. It detects danger. It triggers fear. It prepares you to fight, flee, or freeze. And when you live in emotional submission, when you live with fear of rejection, with fear of abandonment, with fear of not being loved, your amygdala becomes hyperactive. It fires constantly. It sees danger where there is none. It sees threat in every word, in every glance, in every silence. And when the amygdala fires, the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of the brain, the part that thinks, that decides, that defends, becomes suppressed, switched off, inaccessible. You lose the capacity to protect yourself rationally. You act in fear. You act in survival mode. You erase yourself to survive. And there is more. When you live in chronic submission, your body releases cortisol constantly. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and chronic cortisol keeps you in survival mode. Do not build. You do not grow. You do not defend yourself. You merely endure. You merely survive. And your nervous system collapses. It enters freeze response. You do not fight. You do not flee. You freeze. You paralyze. You disappear. And this is not choice. It is biology. It is trauma. It is conditioning. Now let us turn to behavioral psychology. How did you learn to erase yourself? You learned through emotional conditioning. When you were a child, when you expressed needs, opinions, emotions, and were punished, ignored, rejected, you learned something. You learned that being yourself is dangerous, that expressing who you are generates pain, that taking up space generates rejection, and you began to erase yourself, to be accepted, to be loved, to survive. And this created a pattern, a neural circuit, a program, and this pattern repeated in relationships, in friendships, at work, in family, and you no longer even notice. It became automatic. It became who you are. But it is not who you are. It is who you learn to be to survive. And there is more. You developed anxious attachment. Anxious attachment is the deep fear of abandonment. It is the constant need for validation. It is the belief that you are not lovable as you are. And this makes you accept anything. Scraps, disrespect, abuse. Because anything seems better than being alone. And you carry developmental trauma, childhood trauma, relationship trauma, invalidation trauma. And this trauma shaped who you became, shaped how you see yourself, shaped how you treat yourself, shaped how you allow others to treat you. But today this changes, because now you will see the 7 signs, the 7 invisible chains, and when you see, you can break them. First sign, you accept scraps of love. You settle for the minimum. In romantic relationships, in friendships, in family, at work, you are grateful for basic attention. You celebrate when someone treats you with minimal respect. You accept emotional inconsistency as if it were normal. Someone gives you attention one day and ignores you for 10. And you are grateful for the one. Someone treats you well when they want something and discards you afterwards. And you always return when called. Someone gives you conditional love. Only when you serve. Only when you please. And you accept it. Because you do not believe you deserve more. Because you are afraid of being alone. Because you are so emotionally starved that any scrap seems like a feast. You are like someone dying of thirst in the desert. When you find a drop of water, you are grateful as if it were a river. But it is not a river. It is a drop. And you deserve the river. But you have forgotten that. And here is the psychology. You developed anxious attachment. You have a deep fear of abandonment. You have rejection trauma. And this makes you accept anything, because anything seems better than nothing. And here is the neuroscience. Your reward system is dysregulated. When you receive scraps, when someone gives you minimal attention, your brain releases dopamine, a small dose, but sufficient to addict you, to make you return, to make you accept. And this destroys you, because you normalize abuse. You accept less than you deserve. You lose the capacity to recognize genuine love. You lose the capacity to demand respect. You lose the capacity to value yourself. So what do? Define a minimum standard of treatment. Write it down. What is unacceptable? What will you no longer tolerate? Inconsistency? Disrespect? Emotional neglect? Write it, and do not negotiate. List what you deserve. Respect, consistency, genuine attention, unconditional love. Write it, and believe it, and cut off whoever does not offer the basics, without explanation, without justification, without guilt. Simply cut them off. Because you are not an emotional beggar. You need not be grateful for scraps. You deserve the feast. Second sign. You feel guilty when saying no. You cannot establish boundaries without feeling paralyzing guilt. You say yes when you want to say no. You over-justify when refusing something. You feel bad for days after denying a request. Someone asks something. You do not want to do it, but you do it. Because you are afraid of disappointing. Because you need to be seen as good. Because you learned that your worth depends on pleasing. Someone invades your space. You do not like it, but you do not speak. Because you are afraid of causing trouble. Because you are afraid of being seen as difficult. Because you learned that saying no is selfishness, but it is not. Saying no is protection. It is boundaries. It is dignity. It is you choosing what enters your life. You are like a house without a gate. Everyone enters, uses what they want, makes a mess, dirties it, and you still thank them for visiting. But a house needs a gate, needs a door, needs a lock, and you need boundaries. And here is the psychology. You developed people-pleasing, a compulsive need to please. You developed a lack of healthy boundaries. You do not know where you end and the other begins. You developed codependency. You define yourself by the approval of others. And here is the neuroscience. When you think about saying no, your amygdala triggers the rejection alarm. Your brain interprets no as danger, as threat, as abandonment, and you yield. To calm the amygdala, to calm the fear. And this destroys you, because you live the lives of others. You lose your identity, you become emotionally exhausted, you disappear. So what do? Practice no in small situations. Start small. Someone offers something you do not want. Say no, without justifying. Just no. Thank you, but no. Do not justify. You owe no explanation. It is not about the other person. It is about you. Breathe before responding. When someone asks something, do not respond immediately. Breathe, 3 breaths, and then decide. Not on impulse, not in fear, in clarity. And if you are recognizing these signs in yourself, if you are feeling the weight of these chains, leave a comment now writing, "I choose my worth." Writing is not for me, it is for you. Because when you write, you commit. And when you commit, you change. 3rd sign. You apologize for existing. You apologize for everything. Even for what you did not do. Even for taking up space. Sorry to bother you. Sorry to ask. Sorry for breathing the same air as you. You enter a place and apologize for being there. You speak and apologize for having spoken. You exist and apologize for existing. And you do this because you fear rejection, because you believe your presence is a burden, because you live in emotional hypervigilance. You constantly monitor whether you are bothering anyone, whether you are being too much, whether you are taking up too much space, and you carry existential shame. You feel you should not be here, that you are a mistake, that you are a weight. You are like a dog that has been beaten so much it cowers before even being touched. You anticipate rejection. You anticipate pain, and you apologize beforehand. To avoid it, to protect yourself. But this does not protect you. This destroys you. And here is the neuroscience. Your amygdala is hyperactive. Your prefrontal cortex is suppressed. You live in constant threat mode. Your brain interprets every interaction as danger, and you erase yourself to survive. And here is the psychology. You carry rejection trauma. You were chronically invalidated in childhood. You learned that taking up space is dangerous, and this destroys you, because you become invisible. You lose your voice. You disappear. So what do? Count how many times you apologize per day. Simply observe, without judgment. Just count, and you will be shocked. Replace sorry with thank you. Instead of sorry to bother you, say thank you for your attention. Instead of sorry to ask, say thank you for responding. It changes the energy. It changes the narrative. Affirm your presence. Every day upon waking, say aloud, I have the right to be here. I have the right to take up space. I have the right to exist. Say it, and believe it. 4th sign, you erase yourself to please. You change who you are. You hide your opinions. You pretend to like what you do not like, all to be accepted. You agree with everything, even when you disagree. You hide what you truly think, because you fear rejection. You change your manner depending on who is near. You are one person with some, another with others, and none is truly you. And you do this because your identity is fragile. You do not know who you are without the approval of others. You believe the real you is not lovable. You learned that being authentic is dangerous. You are a chameleon that changed color so many times you forgot what your original color was. You adapted so much you lost your original form. You molded yourself so much you no longer know who you are. And here is the neuroscience. Your social reward system releases dopamine when you are accepted, even if it is false. Even if it is a mask. Your brain does not differentiate. Acceptance is acceptance, and you become addicted to it. And here is the psychology. You developed a false self, a social mask, a persona that is not you. You lost your identity. You live a life that is not yours. and this destroys you. Because you lose your essence. You no longer know who you are. You live a lie. And inside, you die. So what do? Write down 3 non-negotiable values. 3 things that define who you are: honesty, freedom, respect. Write them, and do not negotiate. Express 1 genuine opinion per day. Start small. Someone asks what you think. Speak the truth, even if it is different, even if it does not please. Speak. Observe when you pretend, when you agree without agreeing, when you laugh without finding it funny, when you feign interest. Observe and stop. 5th sign. You justify those who mistreat you. You defend those who hurt you. You find excuses for abuse. You blame yourself. He is stressed. She does not mean it. I provoked it. I am too sensitive. You hear disrespect and say it was a misunderstanding. You suffer abuse and say you overreacted. You are mistreated and find reasons to justify it. And you do this because it is easier to change your perception than to accept you are being abused. Because you became attached to those who hurt you. Because you fear facing the truth. Because accepting the abuse means having to act. And acting is difficult. You are a prisoner defending the jailer. Because it is easier than planning escape. Because escape frightens. Because freedom is unknown. And the prison, however painful, is familiar. And here is the psychology. You are in cognitive dissonance. Your brain cannot accept that someone you love hurts you. So it changes the narrative. It justifies. It rationalizes. You developed trauma bonding, traumatic attachment. You became attached to those who mistreat you. You developed emotional Stockholm syndrome. You defend your aggressor. And here is the neuroscience. Your brain creates narratives to protect you from the pain of accepting reality. It distorts. It denies. It justifies. Because the truth hurts too much. And this destroys you. Because you become complicit in your own destruction. You normalize emotional violence. You lose the capacity to protect yourself. So what do? List unacceptable behaviors. What is abuse? Shouting, humiliation, manipulation, disrespect, neglect. Write it. Stop justifying. When you catch yourself justifying, stop. Breathe. And ask, would I accept this from a stranger? If not, why do I accept it from someone who claims to love me? Name the abuse by its real name. It is not stress. It is abuse. It is not a misunderstanding. It is disrespect. It is not sensitivity. It is emotional violence. Name it. And if you are feeling anger now, if you are recognizing patterns that hurt you, if you are seeing the prison for the first time, leave a comment writing, I choose my worth. Because anger is fuel, and you will need it to break these chains. 6th sign. You are afraid of being a burden. You make yourself small. You do not take up space. You live asking permission to exist. You speak quietly. You physically shrink. You avoid asking for help. You do not express needs. You need something, but you do not ask. Because you fear being a burden. You are suffering, but you do not speak. Because you fear being a weight. You have an opinion, but you do not express it. Because you fear being seen. And you do this because visibility seems dangerous. Because you believe your presence is a burden. Because you learned your needs do not matter. You are a shadow that asks permission to exist. That apologizes for occupying the floor. That disappears to avoid being a burden. And here is the neuroscience. Your nervous system is in collapse. You are in freeze response. You do not fight. You do not flee. You freeze. You paralyze. You live in invisibility mode. And here is the psychology. You developed self-erasure, emotional invisibility. You learned that disappearing is surviving, and this destroys you. Because you disappear, no one truly knows you. You live a phantom life. So what do? Consciously occupy physical space. Sit upright. Open your shoulders. Occupy the entire chair. Occupy the space. Speak louder. Literally. Increase the volume of your voice. You have the right to be heard. Ask for something small each day. Start small. Ask for help with something simple. Ask for information. Ask for attention. Ask. Affirm needs. I need space, I need silence, I need respect. Affirm them. Seventh sign. You normalize disrespect. You accept poor treatment as if it were normal. You do not react to disrespect. You constantly lower your standards. Everyone is like this. I am overreacting. It was not that bad. Someone treats you badly. You do not react. Someone disrespects you. You normalize it. Someone crosses your boundaries. You adjust the boundaries. And you do this because you have been exposed to so much disrespect you lost the capacity to recognize it. Because your brain adjusted to trauma. Because you have no reference for how it is to be treated with respect. You are the frog in the pot of water that heats slowly. When you realize it is boiling, you have already lost the strength to jump. You grew accustomed to pain. You adapted to abuse. You normalized the unacceptable. And here is the psychology. You went through trauma normalization. Your brain adjusted expectations. You went through desensitization. You were exposed so much you stopped feeling. You developed emotional anesthesia. You no longer feel. And here is the neuroscience. Negative neuroplasticity. Your brain learned that disrespect is normal. It created neural circuits that accept abuse. It adapted. And this destroys you. Because you lose the capacity to protect yourself. You accept anything. You become an easy target. So what do? Define the red line of disrespect. What is unacceptable? Where is the limit? Write it. And do not negotiate. React the first time. Do not wait. Do not accumulate. The first time someone disrespects you, react. Speak. Leave. Cut them off. Leave toxic environments. Toxic work. Toxic relationship. Toxic friendship. Toxic family. Leave. Because you are not a tree. You can move. Now let us turn to the root. Why does this happen? Why do you erase yourself? Childhood trauma. You had critical parents. You suffered emotional invalidation. You suffered emotional neglect. You suffered emotional or physical abuse. And you learned that love is conditional, that you are only loved when you please, that you only have worth when you serve. And this shaped who you became. Previous toxic relationships. You had manipulative partners. You had abusive friendships. You lived in toxic work environments. And you learned to erase yourself to survive. Culture of submission. Especially for women. Expectation to be sweet, understanding, self-sacrificing. Social pressure not to cause trouble. Fear of being labeled difficult. And you internalized this. Lack of healthy self-esteem models. You never saw anyone defend themselves with dignity. You never learned to say no. You were never taught about your worth. And you grew up without reference. And there is neuroplasticity. Your brain learns through repetition. Each time you erased yourself, you strengthened the neural circuit of submission. Each time you accepted disrespect, you taught your brain, this is normal. Each time you made yourself small, you programmed your nervous system for invisibility. And now it is automatic. But the good news is neuroplasticity works both ways. Just as you learned submission, you can learn dignity. Just as you created circuits of self-erasure, you can create circuits of self-affirmation. Just as you programmed your brain to accept abuse, you can reprogram it to demand respect. So how do you break the chains? First, recognize the signs. You just did this. Awareness is the first step. You cannot change what you do not see. Second, name the pain. Write about it. Speak with someone you trust. Seek therapy. Name it. Because unnamed pain controls you. Named pain loses power. Third, establish boundaries. Start small. Practice no. Do not justify, just know. And observe what happens. Nothing, the world does not end. People do not abandon you, and if they do, they were never yours. Fourth, rebuild identity. Who are you without the approval of others? Write your values, your genuine opinions, your true preferences. Who are you when no one is watching? That is your genuine identity. Fifth, cut toxic relationships. Audit your relationships. Whoever respects you stays. Whoever does not respect you leaves, without guilt, without justification, simply leaves. Sixth, seek professional help when necessary. Therapy is not weakness. It is courage. It is you choosing to heal. It is you choosing to live. Seventh, practice self-compassion. You are not to blame for having learned this. You were a child. You were surviving. But now you are an adult. And you are responsible for unlearning. You are responsible for healing. You are responsible for choosing dignity. Now let us turn to Stoicism, because the Stoics knew about personal dignity. Epictetus, who was a slave, who was tortured, who knew genuine humiliation, said something revolutionary. No man is free who is not master of himself. You cannot be free if you are imprisoned by the approval of others. You cannot be free if you live in fear of rejection. You cannot be free if you erase yourself to please. Freedom is internal sovereignty. It is you governing yourself. It is you choosing your values. It is you defending your dignity. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. You do not control how others treat you, but you control whether you accept it. You do not control whether others respect you, but you control whether you respect yourself. You do not control whether others value you, but you control whether you value yourself. And this changes everything." Seneca wrote, "It is slavery to live in necessity, but to live in necessity is not necessary. You need not diminish yourself to survive. You need not erase yourself to be loved. You need not accept scraps to avoid being alone. You can choose dignity. You can choose dignified solitude instead of humiliating company. You can choose self-respect instead of the approval of others. And the dichotomy of control applies here. You do not control others, but you control your responses. You do not control whether someone disrespects you, but you control whether you stay. You do not control whether someone offers you scraps, but you control whether you accept. And virtue is not weakness. Virtue is not diminishing yourself. Virtue is strength. It is dignity. It is you remaining firm in your values. It is you not negotiating your essence. It is you not selling yourself for approval. True humility is not diminishing yourself. It is recognizing your worth without arrogance. It is having dignity without needing to prove anything. It is respecting others without disrespecting yourself. And if you have reached this point, if you have absorbed these 7 signs, if you have seen the chains, if you are committed to breaking them, leave a final comment writing, "I choose my worth," because this comment is not for me. It is a pact with yourself. It is you saying, "I will no longer erase myself. I reclaim my voice. I exist with dignity." You need not erase yourself to be loved. You need not apologize for existing. You need not accept scraps. You need not make yourself small. You need not justify abuse. You need not fear being a burden. You need not normalize disrespect. You have worth. You have a voice. You have power. And they have always been there. You only needed to remember. Change begins now, not tomorrow, not later, now, in this moment, in this breath. You choose dignity or humiliation, voice or silence, worth or scraps. And if you are not yet subscribed, subscribe. Because here we do not sell illusion, we build dignity. And share this video with someone who needs to hear this. Someone who erases themselves, someone who accepts scraps, someone who apologizes for existing, someone who needs to remember their own worth. And do not forget, this is the Stoic equilibrium. Reason as a way of life, virtue as strength, and discipline as the path. See you in the next video.